Glenn Miller was more than a band leader. He was a cultural phenomenon whose music defined an era and became the soundtrack to American life during the Second World War. With hits like In the Mood and Moonlight Serenade, his orchestra lifted spirits at home and abroad, making him one of the most beloved figures of the 40s. Yet his disappearance in December 1944, when the aircraft carrying him vanished over the English Channel, became one of the great unsolved mysteries of the war. But newly uncovered evidence and painstaking historical research have shed fresh light on what really happened. The day of the disappearance. On December 15, 1944, Glenn Miller boarded a UC-64 Norseman aircraft at RAF Twinwood Aerodrome in Bedfordshire. His destination was France, where he intended to organize a Christmas concert for the troops stationed in liberated Paris. Miller was traveling alongside Lieutenant Colonel Norman Basel and pilot John Morgan, both of whom shared his determination to deliver music as a morale booster during one of the darkest chapters of the war. His orchestra was already performing across Europe, but Miller wanted to ensure that the soldiers in France would hear the uplifting swing tunes that reminded them of home. The Norseman aircraft, though functional, was not without limitations. It was a single-engine plane, often used for short service flights, and it lacked some of the modern navigational and weather-resistant technology available to larger aircraft. The day was marked by poor weather, with fog and icy conditions across southern England and the Channel. Still, Miller and his companions pressed on, unaware that their journey would end in tragedy. After taking off around 1:55 in the afternoon, the aircraft was never seen again by Allied forces. When it failed to arrive at its destination, alarm quickly spread through the ranks, and a search was launched. Despite immediate efforts, no trace of Miller or the plane was found. The waters of the Channel had swallowed the aircraft without leaving evidence. For a man whose music had seemed to conquer distance and despair, the sudden silence surrounding his fate was difficult for the public to accept. As days turned into weeks, rumors and theories began to grow. The official American military inquiry pointed to likely mechanical failure, pilot error, or weather complications. Yet such explanations left many unsatisfied. Given Miller's fame, there seemed to be a need for a deeper or more dramatic cause. The Lancaster bomber theory. The most widely circulated explanation for Glenn Miller's death long revolved around the Royal Air Force's Lancaster bombers. In December 1944, a fleet of 139 Lancasters had been dispatched on a mission to Germany, only to return after the mission was aborted. Burdened with their payloads, they were instructed to jettison their bombs over a designated section of the English Channel before landing. Later, accounts surfaced from veterans who recalled seeing a small aircraft below them as bombs were released, leading to speculation that Miller's Norseman had inadvertently flown into the jettison zone and had been destroyed by the falling ordnance. This explanation seemed credible to many, especially when a navigator claimed he had witnessed a kite crash into the sea beneath his Lancaster. The notion that an unfortunate accident of timing had caused the loss of one of America's greatest entertainers caught the imagination of the public. By 2001, even a television documentary presented this theory as likely, pointing to the coincidence of Miller's flight path and the bomber squadron's activity. But historian Dennis Sprague, a senior consultant at the Glenn Miller Archive at the University of Colorado, challenged the theory through detailed research. By analyzing RAF records, flight logs, and timing data, Sprague determined that the Lancaster bombers had completed their jettisoning of bombs at least 90 minutes before Miller's plane would have reached the Channel. The supposed overlap of flight paths simply did not exist. He noted that none of the Lancaster crews filed an intelligence report about observing an aircraft in distress. Under RAF procedure, it was the duty of airmen to report any such incidents. Mechanical failure and weather conditions. So if his plane wasn't destroyed by bombs, what brought it down? The most probable explanation, according to Sprague and other researchers, lies in the combination of mechanical failure and adverse weather. The Norseman was not designed for long flights over water in icy conditions, and its single engine was vulnerable to carburetor icing. When flying at altitudes under 2,000 feet, as the Norseman reportedly was, the exposure to freezing temperatures could quickly lead to ice buildup in the engine, cutting off power and forcing the plane into the sea. Sprague argued that Miller's pilot, John Morgan, though experienced, had taken a risky approach by flying low in an attempt to stay beneath the worst of the weather. Unfortunately, this placed the aircraft in the zone where ice accumulation was most likely. As Sprague explained, quote, "Ice will cause the engine to stop working properly. The only other rational explanation is that he just flew into the water because he couldn't see." The scenario finds parallels in later aviation tragedies. Sprague drew a comparison to the 1999 death of John F. Kennedy Jr., whose plane crashed into the Atlantic after he became disoriented in poor visibility. The channel on that winter day in 1944 offered similar conditions with low clouds and indistinct horizons. A Norseman flying only 2,000 feet above water would have had mere seconds to recover from a stall or sudden descent before impact. The breakthrough of the Anderton diary. While Sprague's research clarified the weaknesses in the Lancaster theory, another breakthrough came from an unexpected source: the diary of a teenage plane spotter. In the 1940s, young enthusiasts often kept detailed records of aircraft sightings, noting types, directions, and times. One such spotter was Richard Anderton, a 17-year-old living in Reading, England. His notebook remained hidden for decades until it surfaced during a family house clearance and was shown on the BBC's Antique Roadshow. In the diary, Anderton recorded seeing a Norseman aircraft flying east-southeast on the very day of Miller's disappearance. At first, the significance of this entry was overlooked, but upon closer examination, aviation historians realized this was likely Miller's plane, which had apparently taken a dog-leg diversion around London rather than the direct route south to France. This diversion added roughly 40 miles to the journey, altering the timeline of where and when the aircraft would have been over the channel. Crucially, it placed the Norseman outside the jettison zone of the returning Lancasters, eliminating any possibility that it was hit by falling bombs. Anderton had carefully annotated his sightings with directional notes, using letters like S for starboard and P for port, along with OVHD for overhead. When analyzed by experts, these notations confirmed that he was accurately recording the direction and orientation of planes. His observation that the Norseman was heading east-southeast aligned with the idea of a diversion around restricted airspace. The fact that he had placed a newspaper clipping about Miller's disappearance inside the diary decades later suggested he himself believed the plane he'd seen was indeed Miller's. For historian Dennis Sprague, the Anderton diary was the icing on the cake. It provided independent confrontation that Miller's Norseman could not have been in the Lancaster zone at the crucial time. Combined with thousands of pages of documents unearthed in archives, it created a cohesive picture of the flight's final path. The Norseman had simply strayed off course and met its end in the waters of the channel due to human error and weather conditions. A mystery resolved.
You find the steel tube fuselage, you find the engine, you found the Miller airplane.
The conclusion does not diminish the loss felt by millions at the time. Miller's death deprived the world of a musician whose work had brought joy and comfort in the darkest days of the war. His orchestra continued briefly under new leadership, but the magic of his personal touch was irreplaceable. For decades, the mystery surrounding his disappearance added an air of tragic legend to his name, intertwining his music with the unanswered questions of history. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you believe this new theory finally solves the mystery of Glenn Miller's disappearance, or are there still unanswered questions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.